After the French Revolution erupted in 1789, Europe was thrown into chaos. Neighboring countries' monarchs feared that they would share the same fate of King Louis XVI and attacked the new republic. While in France, extremism and mistrust between factions led to bloodshed. In the midst of all this conflict, a powerful figure emerged to take charge of France.
You guessed it, my good friend Napoleon.
Born on the 15th of August, 1769, in French-occupied Corsica, Napoleon was compelled by military profession ever since his childhood. As he watched soldiers parade, he dreamed of being like them and owning their hats, badges, medals, weapons, and uniforms. His mother, Laetitia Bonaparte, raised him in a strict manner, and at the age of 13, made him go to a military college in the north of France. As soon as he arrived, the young Bonaparte dearly missed his homeland, as the weather in his new school was brutally different. And due to his bad accent in French, he was bullied. So, Bonaparte frequently took refuge in the library to escape from those bullies, and acquired a broad knowledge of ancient history and its heroes. He dreamed of an empire and to have a name in history. In July 1783, he joined the Royal Military School in Paris, and at just 16, he was appointed second lieutenant in the artillery. And at the ripe age of 24, Napoleon rose from the rank of a simple captain to the rank of a general.
He took command of the Army of Italy, and this was General Bonaparte's breakthrough, as he became known in the entire Republic for his amazing military tactics.
As a young and successful military officer, Napoleon fully supported the French Revolution and its ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity.
But the revolutionaries were incapable of real leadership.
Robespierre and the Jacobins who first came to power unleashed a reign of terror on the population, with their anti-Catholic extremism and non-stop executions of everyone who disagreed with them. And the directory that replaced them was an unstable and incompetent oligarchy.
They needed a strong leader who could govern wisely and justly. Napoleon Bonaparte overthrew the current government, the Directory, in 1799.
This was called a coup d'etat. On December 2nd, 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor.
You heard me. He crowned himself. This was so that he could owe nothing to the church. Napoleon introduced a new constitution and a legal code, the Code Napoleon, that kept some of the most important achievements of the revolution intact.
Freedom of religion, abolition of hereditary privilege, and equality before the law for all men.
All men, indeed.
He deprived women of the rights that the revolution had given them, and even reinstated slavery in French colonies.
But by creating laws that specifically targeted the economy, the empire was seen as paving the way for modernization, and other institutions followed.
Individual schools called lycées were founded for higher education in engineering, science, and technology. Countries in Europe and across the globe imitated the French legal and educational systems, as they too strove to become modern as well.
This may not seem like a huge deal, but consider how different the world becomes as more people have access to more education. There are more potential innovators to solve big problems. There are more people who can use the tool of writing to share their perspectives with wide audiences, and more teachers to train and educate future generations of professionals and experts.
On the other hand, it's worth remembering that half of the population, women, were denied not just of the new opportunities in France, but many of the rights they'd previously had.
But Napoleon had as many plans for France as he had for Europe, and he set out to conquer and colonize all of Europe and the British Isles.
As Napoleon Bonaparte ruled as an emperor, France's neighboring empires who had invaded France tried to restore the monarchy and prevent the spread of liberty across Europe. Having defended France as a soldier and as a general in those wars, Napoleon knew that the best defense was a good offense.
And when peace was finally secured by 1802, other European powers recognized the new French regime. But Bonaparte couldn't rest until he had control over the whole continent, and all he knew was fighting.
He tried to enforce a European-wide blockade of Britain, invaded any country that didn't comply, and launched more wars to hold on to his gains. He amassed a huge army by drafting young men between the ages of 20 and 24. Then, he earned their complete devotion by fighting alongside them in at least 60 battles. As he conquered Prussian and Austrian territories, he brought men from those areas into his armies too. And by 1806, he had ended the Holy Roman Empire after defeating Austria in several battles, most thoroughly at the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805. Then, he went on to defeat Prussia in 1806 and Russia in 1807, after they declared war on France in succession.
Originally an attempt to maintain French strength established by the French Revolutionary Wars, these new wars became efforts by Napoleon to affirm his supremacy in the balance of European power.
Through these series of quick conquests known as the Napoleonic Wars, the newly born empire was able to extend its influence over most of Western and Central Europe.
And what was the result?
Millions of dead all over the continent, and the whole international order shattered.
On the other hand, it also spread democratic and liberal ideas across Europe.
He forced or inspired reforms such as the end of serfdom, which is forced labor, legislating religious toleration, and creating schools to advance scientific and technological study. Because of his spread of freedom, the powers of the Roman Catholic Church, guilds, and manorial aristocracy came under the gun. The old regime was dead in Belgium, Western Germany, and northern Italy. Furthermore, he unified German states, excluding Austria and the Confederation of the Rhine.
His imposition of the Napoleonic Code, the metric system, and other institutions for standardization helped to unify Europe.
It was thanks to Napoleon that the continent was reshaped from a chaotic patchwork of fragmented feudal and religious territories into efficient, modern, and secular nation-states, where the people held more power and rights than ever before.
Napoleon is also the one to thank for the rise of nationalism and the massive increase in army size. You can see how well that turned out a century later.
Anyways, Napoleon's seemingly unstoppable momentum would die in the Russian winter snows, along with most of his army. But even after being deposed and exiled in Elba, he refused to give up, escaping from his prison and launching a bold attempt at restoring his empire. But after being defeated for the second and final time in the Battle of Waterloo, the British exiled him to the remote island of St. Helena in the Atlantic, where he died in 1821 at the age of 51, likely because of stomach cancer.
So, what would European history have been like if it weren't for Napoleon? I think Napoleon Bonaparte was a ruler full of contradictions, defending a popular revolution by imposing absolute dictatorship and spreading liberal ideas through imperial wars. And though he never achieved his dream of conquering Europe, he undoubtedly left his mark on it, for better or for worse. Napoleon was short. That's a famous fact that scars Napoleon's history. But is it a fact?
Actually, Napoleon was at least average height for his time. The idea that he was short comes only from British wartime propaganda.
Another fantastic fact is that Napoleon's actually my height,
167 centimeters.
Here's a curious conundrum I have for you. Why did Napoleon always hide his hand? Some say it's because concealing your hand in a coat signified gentlemanly restraint and was often associated with nobility. Others say he hid his hand because his clothes irritated his skin and brought him discomfort. Some even say it's because his hand was cut off. I guess Napoleon's missing hand is a question with an answer we can only imagine. I hope you enjoyed this video on Napoleon, a character that was abhorred and admired.